In 2026, the United States of America marks 250 years since its founding. A nation built on expansion, innovation, and movement, where rivers once carried commerce, but steel rails would soon redefine the entire rhythm of progress. As the country grew, so did its need to connect distant towns, fuel industry, and bridge the vast distances between coasts. The answer would come in the form of iron rails stretching across mountains, deserts, plains, and cities, linking a developing nation into one unified network of motion. From the first American railroads of the 1800s to the modern intermodal giants of today, railroads have remained the backbone of industry, travel, and connection. They carried the weight of westward expansion, powered wartime logistics, and helped build the cities we recognize today. Every whistle in the distance and every set of headlights on the horizon tells a story of progress, endurance, and engineering pushed to its limits. But railroading is more than just machinery and mileage. It is a living system shaped by generations of workers, engineers, conductors, dispatchers, and dreamers who kept the nation moving, day and night, through every condition imaginable. From the earliest steam locomotives fighting steep grades to today's high-horsepower freight giants stretching for miles, each era has left its mark on the rails. In this documentary, we take a long look at the amazing railroads that brought America to life. This documentary is a tribute not just to trains, but to the people, the cities, and the landscapes they connect. It is a look at how steel pathways became the silent force behind American growth, shaping economies and communities along their routes. This journey is full of epic American rail action, from heavy freight trains grinding through mountain passes to the steam powerhouses that gave birth to the railroads we know and love today. Every mile tells a story, every train a chapter in an ongoing history still being written across the continent. So, if you're ready, pull up a chair and come along with us as we take a look at the incredible railroads of America. Our journey begins in the dense freight corridors of the eastern United States, where the hum of freight never stops. Here in Cumberland, Maryland, the pulse of intermodal traffic runs through the heart of the Northeast. Welcome to the CSX Keystone subdivision. This subdivision is a major double-track railroad line that runs approximately 132.8 miles between Cumberland, Maryland, and McKeesport, Pennsylvania, near Pittsburgh. It is a vital freight corridor and is famous for containing the Sand Patch Grade, one of the steepest and most scenic mountain climbs in the eastern United States. Heading westward towards Chicago, Illinois, CSX Intermodal Train I-015 charges past Viaduct Junction and led by a pair of AC-44CW locomotives working hard on the point. Containers from the Port of Baltimore stretch for miles, moving toward the Midwest distribution network. At Corriganville, Maryland, eastbound intermodal Q136 hauls up the grade with a GP40-2, third out. These intermodals typically run at a regulated speed of about 40 to 50 miles per hour. Our next stop takes us to the even landscapes and rolling hills of Virginia, where the mighty Shenandoah Valley lies. Within it exists the famous Norfolk Southern Bee Line. The Norfolk Southern Bee Line, formerly the Harrisonburg Branch, is a critical 111-mile freight corridor in Virginia that connects the Washington District Main Line at Manassas to Front Royal and points further south in the Shenandoah Valley. Along the way, the Bee Line passes through well-known railfan locations like Berryville and Winchester, where trains curve through classic small-town scenery and cross historic roadways that have seen generations of rail traffic. In places like Shepherdstown, the railroad hugs the countryside, offering views that feel unchanged for decades, where modern locomotives roll through landscapes that echo the past. At Marshall, Virginia, NS Intermodal Train 274 is heard long before it is seen, its horn echoing through mountain valleys as it descends eastbound toward Rectortown and Delaplane, Virginia. At Old Town Manassas Station, a heavy NS-222 thunders by with a BNSF war bonnet second out. Old Town Manassas is arguably one of the most famous station stops on the Norfolk Southern Bee Line, and also serves passenger trains such as Amtrak and Virginia Railway Express, or VRE. As we enter the western United States, railroading becomes vast. Hundreds of miles between cities, long intermodal trains, and endless horizons. Welcome to the Union Pacific Sunset Route. This route is one of the most important freight rail corridors in the United States, forming a major portion of the Southern Transcontinental Line between Los Angeles, California, and El Paso, Texas, continuing eastward toward the Gulf Coast and the Midwest network connections. It is owned and operated by the Union Pacific Railroad and is part of what rail fans often call the Southern Transcon, a critical artery for coast-to-coast freight movement. At the Salton Sea, in the Sonoran Desert, Union Pacific ZLCLT 22 speeds eastbound with 3 GEVO locomotives on the point in an orderly fashion. At Maricopa, California, 2 heavy Union Pacific intermodals race side by side with an NSES 44 AC third out. Our next stop takes us west into the rugged mountains of California, where one of the most famous railroad landmarks in the world comes to life, the Tehachapi Loop. Hidden within the Tehachapi Mountains near the town of Tehachapi, this engineering marvel is a defining feature of the historic Tehachapi Pass line. Here, trains don't just climb the mountain, they spiral their way through it, looping over themselves in a breathtaking display of precision and design. Here, operations are dominated by BNSF Railway, one of the busiest freight railroads in North America. The loop itself is a masterpiece of 19th century engineering. A full 360-degree spiral built into the mountainside, allowing trains to gain elevation without exceeding manageable grades. For rail fans, it is one of the most iconic places in the world to watch freight railroading in motion. At Cable, BNSF QST OCHI601A rumbles through the mountains with 5 GEVOs pulling a long string of intermodal containers. At the famous Tehachapi Loop itself, BNSFG ABEF RS5, a fully loaded grain train, slowly hauls through the mighty 360-degree loop. Across the same steel corridors used by freight trains, America's passenger network continues its daily rhythm. We have arrived in the heart of Southern California railroading, Los Angeles Union Station. This is not just a train station. It is the central gateway between the Pacific Coast and the National Rail Network. Opened in 1939, Los Angeles Union Station was designed as the last of the great railway stations, blending Spanish colonial, Mission Revival, and Art Deco architecture into one iconic terminal. Today, it serves as the primary passenger hub for Amtrak and Metrolink in Southern California, as well as LA Metro, a local subway light rail line. On Track 9, Amtrak Coast Starlight Train number 14 departs slowly, heading north towards Seattle, Washington. Two P-42 DC locomotives haul the mighty passenger train out of Los Angeles, blaring its K5LA horn in classic Amtrak fashion. passenger trains have definitely reinvented commuter rail travel for the better, and they continue to be beneficial for many people to this day. But beneath modern passenger and freight operations lies a deeper heritage: the age of steam. Today, most of that era exists only in memory. But a select few machines still live on, not as relics behind glass, but as working locomotives on real American railroads. In this segment, we witness two of the most iconic surviving steam locomotives in the United States: Nickel Plate Road 765 and Union Pacific 4014 Big Boy. Two different eras, two different railroads, one shared legacy. The Nickel Plate Road 765 is a historic American steam locomotive built in 1944 by the Lima Locomotive Works for the Nickel Plate Road. Designed as a powerful 284 Berkshire type steam locomotive, 765 hauled fast heavy freight during the final years of World War II. It spent its working life pulling high-speed freight trains across the Midwest until steam locomotives were phased out, making its last revenue run in 1958. After retirement, 765 narrowly avoided being scrapped and was placed on display in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where it sat exposed to the elements and deteriorated for years. In the mid-1970s, the Fort Wayne Railroad Historical Society took on the massive task of restoring the locomotive, completing the work in 1979 and returning it to operation, an achievement that made it one of the first mainline steam engines revived by a volunteer nonprofit. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, the 765 became a major excursion star, pulling long passenger trains across the country and helping spark renewed public interest in steam railroading. Today, it remains one of the largest and most active operating steam locomotives in the United States, continuing to run excursion trips and special events while preserving the legacy of a golden age of railroads. Today, 765 leads a special excursion for the Indiana Rail Experience, traveling from Pleasant Lake, Indiana to Hillsdale, Michigan. We'll follow the 765 as she travels through different parts of Indiana and Michigan, catching her at multiple locations such as Long Lake Road, Bacon Street, Hillsdale, and here at Reading, Michigan. As Nickel Plate Road 765 fades into the distance, its presence is still felt as if it were still in front of us. However, as we leave 765 behind, our journey of American steam shifts westward to a locomotive of even greater scale and even greater presence. In the western United States, steam railroading takes on a different form. Here, the terrain is harsher, the grade steeper, and the distances far greater. To meet these challenges, one locomotive was built unlike any other. Union Pacific 4014 Big Boy, standing as the largest steam locomotive ever constructed. 4014 is one of the most famous steam locomotives ever built. This massive 4884, 132-foot long, 1.2 million pound articulated steam locomotive belongs to the Big Boy class, a series of articulated steam engines designed specifically for heavy freight service across the steep grades of the American West. Union Pacific 4014 has become an idol of American steam and continues to resonate with rail fans and railroad enthusiasts to this day. Today, we chase the Big Boy on its westward bound tour, traveling from its hometown in Cheyenne, Wyoming to Roseville, California, with the return trip being on the original Transcontinental Railroad. We will plan to catch the 4014 at many locations, including Wyoming, Utah, and Nevada. Enjoy! From here, 4014 continues to Roseville, California, where it will then be tied down for the night, before it begins its return trip to Cheyenne on the Transcontinental Railroad. Unfortunately, this is where our journey comes to an end. As our journey across the United States comes to a close, we look back on the incredible paths we have traveled and the railroads we documented. A journey not measured in miles alone, but in motion, history, and connection. We began in the east along the CSX Keystone subdivision, where freight trains move with purpose through one of the most important corridors in American railroading. From the ports of the Atlantic to the inland distribution networks, CSX represents the steady pulse of commerce, quiet, constant, and essential. We continued into the Shenandoah Valley, along the Norfolk Southern Bee Line, a corridor where railroading becomes more personal, where trains move through rolling farmland and quiet towns like Marshall, Rectortown, and Delaplane, Virginia. A line defined not by noise or scale, but by atmosphere, precision, and the rhythm of regional freight movement. From there, the story expanded westward into the vast reach of the Union Pacific Sunset Route. Across deserts, open plains, and long stretches of uninterrupted rail, trains connect Los Angeles to the heart of the continent. Intermodal freights race across the Sonoran Desert, carrying the economy of modern America in stacked containers and moved by steel wheels. Then we climbed into the mountains of Southern California, to the BNSF Mojave subdivision and the world-famous Tehachapi Loop. Here, railroading becomes engineering in motion. Trains spiral over themselves, gaining elevation through one of the most iconic railfan locations in the world. A place where distance is conquered not by speed, but by design. We stood in one of the most important passenger gateways in the nation, Los Angeles Union Station, a place where past and present meet beneath a single roof, where Amtrak trains depart daily, linking California to Seattle, Chicago, and beyond. From the Coast Starlight to long-distance superliners, passenger rail continues to quietly connect a country often defined by its size. And finally, we returned to the roots of railroading itself, the golden age of steam, where Nickel Plate Road 765 carried the sound of Indiana rail across rural landscapes, and Union Pacific Big Boy 4014 commanded the plains of Wyoming, Utah, and Nevada with unmatched presence and scale. Two locomotives, two eras, one shared legacy. They remind us that railroading is not just about freight or passengers, but about endurance engineering and the people who keep history in motion. As we reflect on everything seen in this journey, from CSX freight corridors to Norfolk Southern valleys, from Union Pacific deserts to BNSF mountain passes, from Amtrak terminals to living steam legends, a single truth remains constant. Railroads are not just transportation. They are connection. They are industry. They are history, still unfolding on steel rails beneath us. And as long as trains continue to move across this vast country, from coast to coast, city to city, era to era, the story of American rail will continue forward, 1 mile of track at a time, and one train at a time. Thank you for watching this documentary on the railroads of America. Happy 250th Anniversary, America. I am your narrator, Derek, and I hope to see you all again. Have fun out there on the rails.